spring is not fully here yet in Denmark. I would say it's still very wintry, but that also means that I get a little bit more time to make up some spring summer pieces that I can hopefully use soon. But there's been something that has been stuck in my head and I can't stop thinking about it. It's this co-ord set with a very cool sporty jacket and a matching skirt to go with it, and I just need to make this. I was originally inspired by a sustainable fashion designer named Lydia Bolton, who does a lot of really cool upcycling work and sustainable rework. And a lot of the things that she does, I'm very, very inspired by. But she's made a few jackets actually that are these like very sporty jackets that have this very interesting raglan sleeve. I have never made a raglan sleeve before and was not really feeling like I wanted to get myself into too much pattern drafting this week. I've just come back from a vacation and a lot of things going on in my life right now. So I kind of felt like I needed to ease a little bit back into sewing. It's not that I don't love sewing, it's just that sometimes when you need to start a new project and it's been a while, it just like can feel a little bit overwhelming. So I wasn't really feeling up to the task. So I proceeded with making one mock-up first that kind of faked a raglan sleeve. So this is my first mock-up. I obviously haven't finished it completely. I more just wanted to try and see, first of all, the fit of this pattern that I'll get into in a second. And second of all, I wanted to test out making this like fake raglan. So basically what I've done is just cut out a little square piece and top stitch it on top. And I think it works okay, but when I tried it on, I was just like, this isn't exactly what I want. So I did attempt in my second tryout to make a raglan sleeve. Overall, I think the fit of this works quite well. It has this very oversized look. And of course, like there's gonna be elastic here in the waist. And then for my second tryout, I only made half of a size or half of a bodice, but I think this actually works. The only thing is I need to figure out how. I have some puckering some places. It was really, really hard to sew down, but I need to figure out how to do that properly. But essentially in the way that it fits, I think it actually works. The thing is, I did this in a very hodgepodge way. Basically, when you need to draft a raglan, there's some things about like you need to lower the armhole a little bit and you need to reshape the curve of the actual sleeve a little bit as well. Basically what I did was I just took the two pattern pieces that I had, I'd put the sleeve on top, then I cut out the shape of those square pieces that I want here in the front. I added that to the sleeve and kind of redrew it a little bit and cut out that piece of the front and back bodice. That I don't think is the right way to do it, but I think because I am working with such an oversized pattern, it has such a deep armhole, a very oversized sleeve, I think that it works, kind of. Is this the right way to do it? No. But for this, I think it's fine. So for the pattern that I'm working with, I'm taking most of the bodice blocks from the bomber jacket by Puff and Pencil. I'm not really using too much of the construction method and some of the elements, like I'm not using their welt pockets or the elasticated or the rib cuffs and bottom of the jacket. I'm not using their collar, but the bodice and the sleeves I'm using as like my base. And then from there, I'm self-drafting the bottom of the jacket with the elasticated waistband, the cuffs, the pockets, and the collar, and obviously trying to do raglan sleeves as well. But I think that this has a very good oversized fit and works for kind of this sporty jacket that I want to make. I'm doing it in a size small, by the way, if you're interested. Now I'm gonna start cutting out my pieces. Oh wait, actually, first of all, for the fabric that I'm working with, I'm gonna be working with two different fabrics for this garment today. The main part of the jacket is gonna consist of this white fabric with red polka dots that I also used in my previous project, which was a super duper polka dotted dress. It was a patchwork dress made up of different polka dot scrap fabrics, but then also I had purchased this fabric and used some of that for the dress, but now I'm going to be using it for this. And then for the bodice and the lining, I'm going to be just using some white cotton fabric. Very simple. I am still a little bit nervous about the raglan sleeve that I made because I'm going to see if I can try and smooth out those little puckering areas that I have to see if I can. To be honest, I might end up doing my first option and doing like a fake raglan if I can't really figure out how to properly attach the two pieces. It is quite difficult when I've decided to make very square edges and not like smooth curves. So I'm just gonna try and figure that out first, and then I'll start cutting up my pieces. All right, so this right here is my very shady sleeve pattern. Looks like this. I try and just make sure that it aligns with the front and the back of the curves. I do have a problem that I haven't been able to figure out with this pattern, but for the bomber jacket, there's a curve to both the front and the back in the shoulder, which means that it creates sort of this little dart up at the top, and I just haven't really been able to figure out how to get that out of the sleeve pattern while still keeping the shapes of these very squared edges. So there is going to be a little bit of excess in my shoulder, which I hope is okay for this otherwise very oversized look, that it's not going to hurt the overall pattern too much. But I haven't figured out how to get that out. So we'll see. I'm going to cut out one sleeve first because I did make a few adjustments after my first toile. So I'm going to cut out one sleeve, one front, and then the back, I guess, just to minimize the amount of fabric that I'm going to be trying this out on. So I'm going to cut out the first sleeve now. Okay, I've now cut out a front, just testing one front, and the back, and one sleeve. So it's kind of going to go on like this. I'm going to sew all of this together. If it works, I'll do the other side as well. Very bold of me to not make a second mock-up with my adjustments, but I do have a lot of fabric. Hopefully it's not a waste. To pin the sleeve to the bodice, I had to make some small snips for the curves to sit flat and had to put a million pins in to secure all the corners. Okay, that took me way too long to figure out how to sew in those curves nicely. Still maybe a little off right here, but I think if I press it out, yeah, so still having some issues with the shoulder because it's now quite a bit wider up here. I'm contemplating if I should put in a dart maybe in the shoulder to take it in, or if it maybe is okay that there's a little bit extra shoulder space. That just means that I have to readjust the collar. But otherwise, oh, actually, I don't know how that's going to play out in the lining. Yeah, I might have to do a little shoulder dart situation. I pressed out my seams in the raglan sleeve, and then I measured how much excess I needed to take in the shoulder dart. Before moving on to the other sleeve, I remembered that this was actually the step where I needed to attach the pockets, where I first sewed down the pocket opening, and then I could press in all the corners of the outer edges and attach with a top stitch on the front pieces. Then I got to working on putting in the second sleeve, where I cut a small snip into the corners of the bodice and then made sure to spread out each side of the slit to the triangle corner of the sleeve, if that makes sense. It's kind of fiddly because you also need to make sure that the bulk in the bodice is spread to one side and then pinned down so that you can move it to the side when you're sewing down the corner. and then just really trying to get the corners spread out as much as possible. For these little corners, I'm actually going to start by sewing these down just to make sure that everything in that little slit is sitting flat, and then I'll come back to the rest of the sleeve afterwards, but I just want to make sure that I get that right. So there's so much puckering going on. I really need to go slow and keep the tension. This is so tricky. Just gonna kind of sew over the needles or the pins that I have in. And then when I get to that center point, I pivot, and then I really try to get all of the excess fabric behind what I'm about to sew. Okay, I'm just gonna do that for now and just check if I did that right. I don't think I did, because I think that, yeah, I don't know if you can see that, but I think it did catch. Yeah. That was not good. Okay. I will unpick this and, oh, I also caught the other side here. Okay, so I need to redo this. Until that point. Then pivot. Maybe I went a little too far. Make sure that it's all flat. Ugh, it's so hard to see what you're doing. Okay, hopefully that does it. Maybe it did get, oh, I think it got caught a little bit again. That's annoying. Unpick that. Oh, I see, it's actually, oh, it's not caught. It's just because there's a bit of a crease there. Okay. Well, then I can just go ahead and secure that down. Yeah, I think it's actually a crease. It's not the corner getting stuck. So I'm just gonna straighten that out with my iron, but otherwise I think we're good. And then I did accidentally catch a little bit here, so I just need to unpick that. And actually fixing this kind of thing is pretty easy. Once you unpick it, you just have to really put a lot of tension on it, and it kind of sorts itself out. Okay, I know it's getting a little dark now, but I hope the lighting is still okay. But I finished putting in the sleeves and the pockets. Of course, I still need to close up the whole thing, but I need to attach the cuffs first. But I think it turned out pretty well with getting in these weird shapes. It took forever though. It took me basically all day today, so I'm probably not gonna get too much more done today. I'm gonna attach the cuffs and then the one collar piece, and we'll see if I get to do a whole lot more. I'm gonna start attaching the uninterfaced collar piece. I haven't interfaced the other one yet, but I will. I need to check that I did this right. This has to go all the way here. Okay, I think I may have made a mistake in one of the shoulders. I don't think the dart I made was quite correct. So it's like my collar is a little bit too small for the jacket, but hope I can just ease it into its place. I think it just works. Like, yes, I'm gonna have to do a little bit of easing in the actual jacket, but it's not too bad. So much that needs to be eased. Okay, I put a million pins into place, and now I'm just gonna sew the collar on, right sides together. And then we have another collar piece that needs to get interfaced and will be a part of the facing. My cuffs, here we go. And that finishes off the sleeves actually. All right, now I'm going to assemble the whole side here from the bottom of the hem of the jacket to the cuff. And then we can finally get to see how it really fits. It's going to be a bit of a better try-on experience. While I was pressing the seam towards the cuff, I accidentally pressed out the entire pressing that I just did to put it in half. So that was kind of dumb. I'll just have to press it again. Okay, bringing this over to the machine to do a straight stitch all the way down. I then pressed out the side seams and then pressed the raw edge of the cuff in on itself on the inside of the sleeve, and then sewed that down with a stitch in the ditch, leaving an opening to feed my elastic through. Next, I got to working on the waistband, which I pressed in half and then attached it right sides together to the bottom of the jacket. All right, so I finished most of the outer shell of the jacket today, actually. So I got to add the waistband, of course, needs to be folded up, and I need to add an elastic. I finished the cuffs on the sleeves. It's looking very cute. I really like it. So all I need to, or I still have a lot of steps left, but what I need to do next is start cutting out the pieces for the lining of the jacket and the facing. But I think this is all I'm gonna get done today. But yeah, I'm pretty happy with it. I'm actually very pleased with how these raglan sleeves turned out. So that worked out pretty well. I did add in a small dart to the shoulder, but I don't think that, I mean, you don't notice that really. So I'm very happy with how this turned out. Okay, I'll see you tomorrow. To put the zipper in place, I pinned the zipper down and then I hand basted it in place before sewing it down with the zipper foot. I got to working on the lining and facing and started out by adding some interfacing to the other collar piece, which I needed to attach to the facing of the jacket. And then I got to sewing the lining pieces together. So I've now finished the lining with the facing. Now comes the tricky part, and that's attaching the lining to the jacket, because I am not doing this exactly like the pattern. So there's a few things I'm trying to figure out what the best order of operations is. So I'm supposed to attach the lining down at the waistband first. And I think what I'm gonna do is, while I'm attaching that, because I'll only attach it in this one very little section here on the waistband, before then attaching the lining to the entire front and around the neckline. I think what I'll do in between the lining and the mane, I think I'm gonna attach this elastic at the end and attach it to both sides, because at some point at the end you have to attach the bottom of the waistband to the lining, and so it should be in between there. I'm so confused. Okay, hold on. I need to just think one sec. Okay, I think I know what to do. So I think before even attaching the lining, what I need to do is attach the elastic. This is the waistband. This is the part that gets sewn to the lining, the bottom of it. But I think I need to attach the elastic in here to sort of the top of the waistband, and then this will get covered up. So I think I need to do that first. So I'm just gonna secure the elastic here and on the other side, and then I'll attach the lining. I hope that's the right order of operations. Okay, now I've attached the elastic down here, and I think now I can try and sew the lining. Okay, I have the lining here. First things first is to align facing the wrong side out with the lining. I'm attaching that right sides together to the bottom corner here, and I'm gonna stitch it alongside there, I guess without catching the elastic. I'm only sewing it a part of the way on each side. Okay, now I've secured the lining to the bottom edge of the waistband here, and now I need to attach it all the way up the front and around the neckline. I'm supposed to sew this down with a zipper foot, so I'm placing the zipper teeth in toward the jacket. So it's the next day. I couldn't finish sewing the front of the lining together because it was getting really late. But I'm back and now gonna try to figure out this attaching a lining situation. I've only sewn a lining to a jacket one other time. I'm like trying to wrap my head around how this is supposed to be sewn together. And it's wrinkling my brain. So I kind of have to take it one step at a time before I can see where this is going. But I've pinned the front of the lining to the front of the jacket with the zipper sitting away from the front edge here, and then pinned all the way around the neckline. So I'm gonna sew that with a zipper foot now to make sure that I'm not sewing on the zipper. Then comes the sleeves, and this is the part that, because it's kind of different from what they're doing in the instructions, I'm trying to figure out the best way to do it. Okay, I think my problem is that method that I was going to use did not work. I think the reason why I'm a little hesitant to use their method, they want me to fold in my cuff toward the outside of my sleeve and then align the edges of the lining to the edge of the cuff and sew it with a 1 centimeter seam allowance. And that just means that I'm going to be losing a bit of my cuff. That's why I wanted to avoid that and try and hand stitch it and stitch it right at the border, but I couldn't do that because the elastic is making it impossible. I need to sew this under the machine. I guess actually what I probably shouldn't have done was maybe I shouldn't have folded in. There was no reason for me to fold in the edge of the cuff so that the raw edge wasn't exposed. But still, they still want me to sew it where the elastic is, I guess. Like that's where they want me to sew it on. So it just means that I'm going to be losing a little bit of my cuff, and my cuff is kind of small to begin with. But I've tried to sew it a different way where I align the lining more towards the end of, or like outside of that elastic part, and that just means that I'm catching the outside of the sleeve as well, kind of into the cuff. I can show you actually on the other side here. Basically, here's an example of where I tried to align it more to the edge, not of the elastic, but of the edge of the fabric on the inside or of the cuff. And as you can see, like I've managed to do an okay job in some areas where it's sort of aligning right at the border of my cuff, but then there's a few places where I didn't catch it all the way. I think here, yeah, there was a pretty big gap right there. I think I might need to try and sew it over where the elastic is, but that's just super annoying. But it's sitting in there, so that's at least something. I just broke through 2 needles trying to sew this together, and I only have 1 needle left. I think I'm gonna have to use a thicker needle to get through all of these layers. After figuring out the cuffs, I could finish the waistband by pinning the right side of the waistband to the inside of the lining, but leaving a 10 centimeter gap. I then flipped the whole jacket inside out through a slit I'd left in one of the sleeves. And then through the gap I had left in the waistband, I could move the elastic into place and start pinning down the elastic while stretching out the fabric and the elastic in small sections. Yeah, I need to like fold it in and then sew. Not sure if maybe better to do with a stitch in the ditch, but I'm just going to start from the other side. Trying to pull out the elastic. So that's a bit complicated, but I'm gonna try and just get it down like that here in one place. I probably shouldn't have sewn the elastic all the way up towards the end where the zipper is. Probably should have just given about like, I don't know, 4-5 centimeters or space, but oh well. I then had to sew the collar together by stitching in the ditch of the collar pieces. And lastly, I top stitched the zipper down. The jacket is done now, so now I'm gonna start working on the matching skirt to go with this jacket. For the skirt pattern, I've decided to go with the Saundra Skirt by Sydney Graham. I love the lane pants by her as well, so I really wanted to give another one of her patterns a try, and it looks like such a nice flowy skirt. My original vision was to make more of a mini skirt. I do like wearing mini skirts sometimes, but I'm also not always into it. I feel like a long skirt is definitely something I would get more wear out of, so I'm gonna make a long one. A short one would have been cute, it would have been very sporty, but a little harder also to wear on its own, so I think a long skirt is gonna be nice. So I'm gonna get started on that, start cutting out my pieces, and I think it's pretty quick to make actually, so see you in a bit. So for the skirt, I first need to sew all the panels together, and I'm gonna do that essentially by doing a French seam. So first sewing wrong sides together, pressing out the seam to one side, and then sewing right sides together down on that same seam. I sewed all panels for each skirt wrong sides together with a 1/4 inch seam allowance, then pressed the seams to one side, and then pressed down right sides together and sewed with a 1 centimeter seam allowance. I found it to be much more efficient to do all the sewing of all the panels together at once, so I could press them all at the same time as well. I was working with a lining for this skirt, so I put the lining wrong sides together to the skirt and then sewed down at the top of the skirt. Then I attached the pockets to the right side of each skirt panel. Oh my god, okay, so I've just spent all this time working on the lining. I'm almost finished with sewing up the lining, and I'm just realizing how freaking heavy this skirt is. So I probably just should have checked when I'd sewn the skirt pieces together if it was actually see-through, because that's why I'm putting a lining in. But I don't think it really is, so it's not really necessary with the lining. And it's becoming way too heavy, so I need to make a version without the lining. So I need to unpick all this that I've just sewn up. And I'm also out of elastic, so I wouldn't be able to finish this tonight anyway because I need elastic to finish the waistband. I hate unpicking, but that's a part of sewing, so you just gotta get through it. Okay, so it's the next day and I've taken apart my whole skirt again, taken out the lining, now attaching the pocket bags. So I've sewn them to the wrong side of the skirt first, and then pressed open the seam, folded over the pocket bags here on the right side of the skirt, pressed them down, and now I have to make, I think, a small snip here at the top and bottom of the pocket bag so that the rest of the seam allowance can lay flat like that. And then I have to stitch the pocket bag in place here. So continuing without the lining, I needed to construct the skirt with French seams as well. So I attached the two skirt panels first wrong sides together, sewing all along the pocket bags as well. Then pressed open the seams and flipped the skirt inside out. I don't even know what day it is of this project. I feel like I've been working on it forever, but hopefully today is the day that I get to finish. I've just had so many plans and things after work that I haven't had a lot of time to work on this week, but I only have the waistband and the hem left of the skirt, and then hopefully I'm done. Yeah, so let's get started on that. I pressed the top of the skirt down by 4 centimeters to use the fold line as a guide for later. Then I needed to fold the skirt into half 2 times so I could mark the midway point by each fold, and then did the same for the elastic. So that I could match up those markings on both the elastic and the skirt. And then I sewed the elastic down at the edge of the skirt. This is such an interesting way of doing an elasticated waistband. I've never tried this before, but it's pretty smart. Like, it's a little bit trickier, I would say, but it works pretty well. I don't know if I'm quite finding that line that I pressed down first, but it's approximate. Because once it's pretty scrunched up, it's kind of hard to see where that fold line, or the line where I pressed, is at. Ow. I keep pinning myself. Okay, I'm gonna stitch this down now. Lastly, I just needed to finish the hem with a rolled hem, which I first did by pressing up 1 centimeter and sewing down, then trimming the excess of the hem and folding up once more to stitch down. And then we're done. It's finally starting to show some signs of spring in Copenhagen, and I'm so happy that I got to wear this set out. I actually can't believe that I managed to figure out how to do this jacket with these raglan sleeves. I'm really proud of myself for this set, and I think this is actually one of the cleanest things that I've made. I can just really see how much my sewing skills have progressed over the past 1.5 years, and it's, yeah, just so amazing to see. Now, I do still have some thoughts, and I think if I were to make this jacket again, I would definitely make it shorter and maybe its hat smaller. And I probably wouldn't add a lining again for this type of jacket. I think it made it a little bit too bulky for this type of jacket and this kind of material, but it's also nice to have an extra layer to make sure that it wasn't going to be see-through. The Saundra skirt is absolutely amazing and an absolute staple to have in your wardrobe for summer. I can't recommend it enough. I hope that you enjoyed watching this video, and if you did, please hit the subscribe button for more content like this, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye!